To my understanding, I think the Prime Minister is sincere in promoting the idea and the approach of moderation, both at home and overseas. But when it comes to domestic issues and policies, I think he is under tremendous pressure from his party and from other sectors, to the extent that sometimes you see him not or you see him compromising to a certain extent. But I understand that I think he is under tremendous pressure. Otherwise, he would have continued, for instance, with his transformation program. Unfortunately, we are not hearing much about the transformation program. But having said that, credit must be given to him when he launched the 11 Malaysia Plan. The 11 Malaysia Plan is actually a reflection of how moderation is at work in terms of developmental policies. One third of the 11 Malaysia Plan is about inclusivity. Inclusiveness is moderation at work when it comes to policies. The only hiccup within the inclusivity or the inclusiveness of the 11 Malaysia Plan is there is still the Bumiputra agenda. It would have been more beautifully written and presented if inclusivity is presented without having to resort to having a chapter on Bumiputra agenda. Not that it is wrong. Affirmative action is allowable, but it could have been presented in a better way.
So like you said, Prime Minister have a lot of pressure at home, which means, is that to say Malaysians are not prepared for the vision of Prime Minister Najib and more moderate, for a more moderate movement, both economically and socially and foreign policy wise?
I think there are two narratives going on at the same time. The first narrative is the narrative at the higher level. Some people call it the headlines narrative. And this is normally contributed by politicians, sometimes echoed by the media. The second narrative, which is even more important, is the grassroots narrative. I think majority Malaysians are, by definition, moderates and very reasonable people. And they would want the Prime Minister to maintain a centrist approach, which is a moderate approach, like what he was doing right before GE13. I thought his rating was very high. His approval rating was very high because generally the public thought this is the way the Prime Minister should be leading Malaysians as a whole. Between the two narratives, I think we should worry more if the second narrative is running away from being centrist. But I think the second narrative at the grassroots level is still fine, is still very good. People are generally very moderate. The problem with the first level of narrative is that by the stroke of a pen or by a small, by just one pronouncement, it can disturb the second narrative.
Right.
The second narrative has its own hiccups, like what happened after Loyat and things like that. But it can be controlled. It can be contained. It can be contained because those are just a small majority of people who somehow get excited for whatever reason. But we were lucky at that moment in time. The police came just in time to prevent it from becoming something else. Yeah. But what worries people, not only me and GMM, what worries most people that I met is that if at the first level, that narrative, if you don't check, if you don't contain that narrative, this is where things can actually get can go wrong.